Have you ever felt yourself sitting there doing nothing, but you feel physically tense, feeling like you're in fight or flight mode? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to discuss how even basic activities cause us to be stressed or on edge, how we can notice and reclaim a sense of calm in that moment, and then how we can change our default state to relaxed and at peace. My name is Greg Brooks, and I spent a lot of my life living in a way that most people said would bring me happiness, but it didn't. I made a bunch of money playing poker. I built and grew and sold businesses. I was a young 20-something-year-old living a single life in New York City, partying it up, and I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. When I was 26, my dad got diagnosed with cancer and pretty quickly died, and that really threw me for a loop. What I found out on the other side of that journey, as I examined everything in this world, is that we actually have the ability to control how we feel, behave, and exist, and to reclaim our moment-to-moment existence. And that's where we're going to talk. One big question is, why do we randomly feel stressed or tense in a given moment? And the reason is because of our nervous system. Our nervous system is basically our body's control center, and its job is to make sure that we don't get mauled by a saber-toothed tiger when we leave outside the cave. So it's always scanning the environment for threats. And out of that nervous system, it's got two main branches: the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is calm. It's when we experience a slowed heart rate, relaxed muscles, and no tension. And this is when healing and regeneration occurs in our body. On the flip side, the sympathetic nervous system, that's our fight or flight. That's emergency mode. Perceived threats kick in and they make us feel like we're on edge. Our heart rate increases. Our breathing becomes shallow and more rapid. Our muscles tense up, and we're basically preparing for action. The big problem is that our brain is actually perceiving a life-threatening danger, and it cannot tell the difference between something that's actually life or death or something like a deadline from work, being stuck in traffic, seeing something on social media. And so because our brains isn't able to tell the difference, many of us are constantly in a low-grade fight or flight state, and that keeps us stressed and on high alert all day, every day. So the name of the game that we want to play is to shift from that heightened fight or flight moment-to-moment living into a default state of relaxation. And we can make that switch with the following steps. So step number one, we can notice that something is happening in the moment, and then we can choose to change our behavior. I'm going to run through a bunch of examples, and I would just pick the one that resonates most with you and not worry about the other. So one example is our breathing turning shallow when we're stressed. We have the ability to notice when that's happening and consciously shift in the moment. We can switch to something like box breathing, which is inhaling for 4 seconds, holding our breath for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, and then holding the release of our breath for 4 seconds. So making a box, then doing it again. You can also do a 2x exhale. So you're breathing in for 4 seconds through your nose, and you're exhaling for 8 seconds through your mouth. That's one way to deal with shortness and tightness of breath. If you tend to have scrunched posture, maybe you're sitting at a desk or you're sticking your neck out a lot, that's actually putting you in fight or flight mode because your shoulders are in an attack position. So what you can do when you notice that is drop your shoulders, unclench and relax your jaw, and soften your hand, which tend to get really tight. A lot of us also have nervous energy. So you see people touching their fingers a lot or tapping our feet, squeezing different parts of our body. What I would recommend for that is to use a calming ritual. When I feel my feet tap, I firmly and gently put both feet on the ground. When I feel parts of my hands squeezing themselves or my body, I have a relaxed place that I could put them on the desk, on the table, nearby. It's a default place that I go to. And the last area to really notice what's happening in the moment is in mindful pauses. So if you're waiting for an elevator, or you're washing your hands in the bathroom, or you're taking a sip of water or coffee or something, you have the ability to pause in that moment and just say, as you're doing this, what do I hear? What am I seeing? What am I feeling right? It's just about noticing what's happening in that moment and then changing the behavior. Again, Pick the one that resonates most with you. I personally put a Post-it note in front of the area where I do whatever it is that I'm trying to notice, and that will prompt me to notice in the moment. So step one is all about just noticing when we get into these fight or flight areas, which is very common and happens very frequently. Step two is to reframe the trigger. So what that means is something's causing us to pop into fight or flight. Remember, it's our brain's response to stimuli. So our job is to notice that change and then to reframe it, to redescribe what that stimulus is. So it's no longer creating an undesired response. So here's what I do. I'll notice something that's causing me to feel stressed out or in fight or flight. I will write that thing down on a piece of paper or a journal. I will ask myself, what is this trying to tell me? And then I will actually reframe the experience. So let's run it through a couple different examples now. One might be feeling overwhelmed from work. So maybe I get a bunch of emails, I look at my phone in the morning, or I come back from a break and there's a lot of messages from Slack. Write that down. Previously, I might have thought something like, I'm drowning, I can't keep up, I'm failing. I can reframe that as, these messages are a sign that people trust me and value my input. I don't need to respond immediately. I can still set priorities and set boundaries. Another example is a difficult conversation. So somebody might say something to you that's critical or dismissive of you. And previously I might have thought, this means they don't respect me or they don't care about me or my opinion. I can reframe that to the idea that this person's words are a reflection of their own experience, not necessarily reality. I can choose my thoughts to be reflective of my own experience as well. We might have something else that gives us a feeling of stress or fight or flight, not knowing our path in life. So maybe in the past I felt uncertain or unsafe or like I'm a failure. I can reframe that to think that uncertainty is where possibilities exist, and I can choose to be excited about the unknown or about the possibility to make a positive change instead of fearing it. So these are very basic reframes that can be done. And if you're sitting here saying, honestly, that's pretty creative, I don't think that I would be able to do that, just go into ChatGPT or some other model, put in your trigger, put in your initial reaction to it, and ask for 3 or 5 different example reframes that are positive, then pick the one that you like. The third step in this process is to practice defaulting to a relaxed state. So let's recap for a second. We built up some habits. That's okay. Our first step is to become aware of our default state. In other words, why we're becoming stressed or what's triggering our fight or flight. Then we reframe that experience so our mind knows it's not a life-threatening situation. And now we're going to add on top of that some practices that you can do to default to a relaxed state more in your moment to moment of your given day. So I picked out a couple that I think are really easy to do and you don't need to learn a new skill set or develop a new habit. These are why I chose this list. Again, take what is resonating with you. Number 1, go into nature. So literally go outside and go hang around trees, put your hand on some grass, on some trees, and just become conscious about how you feel in that moment. Breathe in the air, breathe calmly, go for a walk, whatever it is. This is meant to reset your default state. Yes, while you're doing that, but it also benefits when you come back inside. And you get bonus points if you take your shoes off and you take your socks off and you have your bare feet directly touching the grass or the dirt or wherever you are. A nice second practice to default into a more relaxed state is to set an intention at the beginning of your day. So every morning when I wake up, the very first thing that I do is I set an intention for the day. So if I wanted to be in a default relaxed state, I would literally say in my mind or out loud, I will default to a relaxed state today. Then I would imagine the emotion of what that would feel like. I would imagine a relaxed breath. I would imagine my legs being quiet. I would feel the cells of my body in a relaxed state. And then I would feel that emotion and I would feel that pure relaxation. Then I just go about my day. You would be shocked at how big of a difference 30 seconds in the morning makes. The third recommendation for defaulting to a more relaxed state is breath work. I like breath work more than meditation for most people because it's active and we already know how to breathe. So what I would do if I wanted to learn more, I would just Google different breathwork techniques and then choose one that resonated with me. My personal recommendation would be to integrate this into something that you already do so that your habit building becomes passive. So I would do breathwork when I was in the shower because I'm already taking a shower and I already know how to wash my body. Or I would do breath work for 2 minutes the moment I sat down at my desk for the day because I know that it's a potential trigger for me. There's different practices in here that we just went over, but all you have to do to get into a default state more regularly is to pick the thing from that list that resonated with you most and then spend the 15 or 30 seconds every now and then messing around with it and playing it and feeling how it feels. Okay, last piece here, how to apply this video for relaxed success. So there's a couple guidelines here. Okay, you're undoing a habit to start off. So don't expect this stuff to be magically fixed overnight. This is probably a habit of feeling stressed or in fight or flight that's built up for years. Give yourself some grace, as well as the time to build that new habit. The next thing I'd recommend is to pick fewer things. Choose one trigger that you notice gets you into fight or flight. Then choose one method to reframe in that moment that you like. Then choose one practice that you can do to help your default state become more relaxed. Don't worry about doing too much at once. In fact, the less you do at once, the easier it is to build up a habit. Keep track of your progress. And remember, give yourself grace. You start off doing a new habit 0% of the time. So any progress that you make is going to be great progress. You've got this. Thanks for listening.